I want to thank these companies for their sponsorship and today for all they do for us throughout the year. CMC Leadership Legacies are presented by Bricker and Eckler, represented today by Kurt Tunnell. Kurt, thank you. Additional sponsors for our Leadership Legacy series are Huntington, represented by Stephen Fields and his associates, Fireproof Record Center, represented by Michael James and his associates, and the Columbus region. We're also happy to recognize our partner for this series, Conway Center for Family Business. Please thank these companies for their support and welcome Kurt to the stage.
Thanks, Rich. Bricker and Eckler is really pleased to be able to contribute to this series and help support the Columbus Metropolitan Club. We particularly have been interested in a variety of programs that we've had in the leadership series. Many of the leaders and founders in our community have had an opportunity to share their stories, and we're certainly looking forward to today's presentation. The complete biography of our speakers are, of course, in your program, but I did want to take a few minutes to introduce them to you. Bricker has had a long-standing commitment to community growth and community service, and we are particularly delighted at the program that has been put forward together. Our speaker today has certainly followed in his father's leadership example by making a tremendous contribution to Central Ohio and to the entire region. Not only in his leadership at Worthington Industries and the many jobs that are provided to Central Ohioans in that business and the leadership that they've provided in the manufacturing community, but also to the community itself and the contributions, whether it's a hospital or the Columbus Blue Jackets. Certainly his personal involvement has led to bringing a professional sports team to Columbus and giving that profile to our community all across the United States. Would you please join me in welcoming John P. McConnell. And our interviewer today is Jeff Hogan, currently the co-anchor of the morning news at WBNS TV. Really delighted to have Jeff here to conduct the interview. And on behalf of our firm, Bricker and Eckler, Huntington, Fireproof Record Center, Conway Center for Business or for Family Business, and the Columbus Metropolitan Club, we are very, very pleased to present this program to you. Jeff, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Kurt, very much. I'm not normally in charge of this, but I was in charge of the weather today. Yeah. And I suggested that we move this recess outside. And how did we vote on that? Still hasn't come up yet, but we are delighted to be here and have a few minutes with JP here this afternoon, and hopefully we'll get some insights here. Beginning with what came to my mind first, John, was what lit the fire for you? You're in a steel family business. How do you get started?
My first memory is, I don't know, back in the day they had, Coke had on the backside of their, tops of their bottles, football helmets, and you could collect all the NHL, and I got to go over to our plant and empty out the pop machine.
And from there, it just blossomed.
It blossomed.
Things were looking up right from the start.
It went, no, I did spend summers starting, cutting grass, doing normal things you think about. I don't know that that's legal anymore for an age standpoint because I was doing it at 12 and 13. One of my best memories, it was really cool because I played high school football. I was a fullback, and back in the day, Woody Hayes used to like his players to actually have hard jobs in the summer, so we'd end up a lot of it out in our plant. But I got to tar a roof with John Brockington, who was kind of my idol at the time, for about 3 weeks, and that was really good. That may have lit the fire.
Lit the fire, and I mean the family is in the steel business. I mean the steel was what you did. Was that always what you were going to do?
Oh no, I mean I'm like anybody. As I got older, there were certainly times where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do.
How did you figure out your way?
Well, I ended up after University of Louisville, came back and just started work. And that lasted a good while. I did leave in the early 90s for about a year and a half and then came back. It's funny when you ask it that way, and it's the family's heavily involved in the business. My father's the founder. I was with somebody who had gone and done their own thing and then eventually came back to the business, and I complimented them. I said that was good, that took some courage. He said, actually, I think it took more courage to stay in it, like you did. So just kind of migrated through.
I can understand that. Having a family in the construction business, best thing I did was get out of it. But then, some people would say maybe that's an easy path for you to take, following your father's footsteps. What was hard about it?
Well, there's a point. Well, he's the founder of the company. I've kind of got it in my head in my late 30s, early 40s that there's only one of those.
So you're right on schedule with normal sons.
Yeah. And,
30s, 40s.
So I don't know if there's anything particularly hard about it. Obviously, there's a lot of assumptions made by other people, but that's okay. You just have to kind of get your head around where you are and what you're going to do. And obviously, there's also a lot of benefits. So all kind of blends together.
Yeah, and you're able to parlay those obviously into a successful business. Do you derive your business acumen straight from your dad? Did you follow that golden rule right through everything?
Certainly adhere to the philosophy that he committed to writing. Probably viewed it a little differently as the thing that allows us to change all the time and never lose our way, keep our principles together. He had a saying that I heard a billion times, which is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Every time you go in to talk about something, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, John. Okay. And I heard Rick Pitino speak at one of the rising young stars of conferences that the Y used to put on. And he said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is that the dumbest thing you've ever heard anybody say? Should we all wait till it breaks? It's like, I think he's got something there. So you kind of end up locking in, I think my dad did, and a number of other people that he worked with, to what we were doing, thinking that's what made us successful. As opposed to always looking at the environment you're in and things have to change, as long as you keep your principles. But yeah, I learned most of what I know business-wise from my father, and then on my own after. But
anything that you directly steered away from stubbornness, or wanted to go your own way, or just I'm going to do things differently?
I don't think consciously. Yeah. I think all children push off where their parents were. That there's kind of a natural set of that going on. I was largely raised by my mother, but certainly from a business standpoint, to have the group of friends he had and be able to be up close and personal with that as I grew up was amazing. Having dinner every night was amazing as he'd tell stories and talk about what was going on at work. So I learned a lot that way, largely through osmosis. He wasn't the greatest direct teacher in the world, but obviously shared a lot of stories and learned a lot.
I was always fascinated by his stories, sitting and listening to him for long periods of time. When did you, I hate to paint you with this brush, but stop being, because John H. was a revered, beloved member of this community, when did you stop being Mr. Mac's son and start being your own businessman?
Depends on who you ask. I think there are some that will always view it that way, and that's fine. And my role, and I've told my son this, who's over here, John. By the way, my wife Amy's here too, so I can't get in trouble. What did I start to say?
You're in trouble already.
Yeah, I am in trouble already. That you just have to not take yourself too seriously, not worry about what other people think necessarily, just do what you think is right. So I'm sure there are all kinds of opinions about me, largely from people I've never met.
So you don't worry about that?
No, I don't.
Especially if you don't take yourself too seriously all the time. The process of the business and how it's played out for you, do you enjoy the process of how things go?
Yes, very much so.
Is that what drives and motivates you? What is it at the core?
It's fun to put together a group of people that come together as a team. And I would tell you, through the 90s and until the early 2000s, it was a very frustrating experience for me to to move the steel company. I really had a lot of trouble getting that to happen. It kind of derived a saying of mine, which is success is a mighty enemy. You see it all the time. You see it in a lot of different people. Success just tears people down. And they start believing that there's something they're not, and they start taking themselves too seriously and lock into the wrong things. But finally, I came to terms with a company up the street called Greif. They had a major consultancy in, and they were very much like us, kind of stuck. And we worked with them, and they really helped unleash the potential of the people we had there again. They just really have reams of data. My father hated consultants and didn't like the idea we were doing this. But it turns out they don't tell you what to do. They just have reams of data, and they let you look in a mirror and say, like, well, I guess I'm really not that good. And then all of a sudden we started getting some energy back in the company. So I couldn't be happier with the last 5 years where we are. We've come a long way and got a long way to go. We like to say, a lot of people here from Worthington are right out here, you got to strive for perfection, accepting the fact you can never achieve it. But if you get that mindset, that's what makes you get perpetually better.
So you mentioned 1990 there and some of the subsequent years from a general laborer in 1975 up to the years in 1990, and you start to do your own thing and you start to take the company in places that you want to take it. Was it hard to at times relinquish some of that control to some of the things that you thought maybe other people would be better at doing?
No, not at all. And really, it wasn't into the early 2000s that I really started getting control of the company. Somebody had told me when I first got this job that you have to be careful what you say because people will rush off and do it. Really. That turned out not to be the case in my case. Yeah, I did everything I could think to do, and I was a product of the company itself. So my range of knowledge was limited by my own experience. But it was hard. It was hard to get people to do what I wanted them to do. Our main customer base was the Detroit Three. Japan was here. Germany was here. They were invited here because they had to play on a level playing field. Well, guess what? They came. Careful what you ask for if you're an automobile manufacturer. The steel companies were doing terribly, and technology was moving forward on that side. So a lot of things were changing from the middle 80s forward in pretty dramatic ways, and we needed to change with it, and we were comfortable. Nobody wanted to change anything. So that was hard. So it wasn't until I haven't had control very long, and I'm still happy relinquishing it to the group of leaders we have coming up because they're outstanding.
Change tends to disrupt the comfortable.
Wait a minute. I'm not relinquishing anything yet. Anyway.
So into the 2000s in that time frame, and through some rocky times in recent years even. I mean, what's it like to lose $100 million?
It's not very fun. We worked through that, and it took a little longer than we had hoped, which is how we ended up losing that much. But it was a tough putt for the city and county officials. They got there. We're deeply appreciative, and the Blue Jackets are on a great foundation at this point. And it's not that we can't lose money, but it puts us in a place where we can probably live within the bounds of what we lose or make. So,
from 2000, what was that like? Because that's the birth of the hockey club, and the time when you start to take over some of the things in Worthington Industries as well. What was that balancing act like?
In the beginning, I wasn't really that much involved. I would be a liaison sometimes between Dad and Doug. Again, he didn't go down and communicate a lot. But that was about it. I learned a long time ago when I made a suggestion at Double Eagle, and he made it very clear whose Double Eagle belonged to, and his things were his things, and so I always waited to be invited in, and I was on some major decisions sometimes, but wasn't that involved, so not that much of a balancing act. Dad died in 2008, and that's, of course, as you're going into the season, the recession hits, and no, I ain't got time for it. My living's made at Worthington, that's what I do, and it needed all my attention at that point. So really, to get into 9, 10, could spend a little more time with the organization, see where we were as an organization, what we needed to do. And by the way, when I talked about getting the fix, there was tremendous support from the dispatch, and if it weren't for Nationwide, we also wouldn't be here. So I would always be thankful to them.
To your note about Double Eagle there, we know whose picture's on the wall in
Yes.
the main dining room. So,
Yes, and it will always be there.
Right, exactly. So that doesn't change. Nothing will there. When you go through something like the Blue Jackets, business-wise, when you're in the business world, you get measured, by your shareholders. It's very different. It's more on the sleeve when you're out there in the business world of professional sports, and things there's wins and losses, and there's fans, and those are your shareholders, I suppose,
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah.
There's a much broader base of experts. So that took a little bit getting used to, but then, I'm a sports fan too, so everybody's got an opinion. Organizationally, we just need to build up the strength of this organization. I would say one of the things that was somewhat surprising as I got involved was there wasn't much of an organization there. We had a lot of people working hard, but it was my son actually who pointed out. He said, when you bring in a young player who may be 18 or anybody under 21, you kind of show them where the phone is and how you dial it, and then you leave them in this apartment. And that's no way to run the railroad, right? So, and the culture of the Blue Jacket, who are you becoming when you join our club? Mm-hmm. So those are all things we've really been working on from an organizational standpoint, and those are the strengths I can bring, is setting up the structure of which a culture will develop. Tickled to death with the leadership we have out of the players at this point. I will miss Rick. I love Rick. He's a great guy. But it did open the door for others to step up in a leadership role. And we got 5 guys that are really going to take control of the room at this point, and they've taken control of the summer. And they call the young guys at least once a week, and they're starting to drive things. And it won't be too far down the road till it's pretty clear what a Blue Jacket is.
Any insight? We want to make sure they play.
Well, we want to make sure they play. We're after people, we certainly, after last season, doubled down on the fact we want people with high integrity and players that we can count on who would rather slit their throat than lose. Those are the kind of people we want.
And I'm talking about just play hockey, period.
Yes. Oh, well, there's that.
There's that.
Yes.
As well. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that for certain. If you looked at a plan that you had, did you have a plan of how you would get here?
You mean like to the Metropolitan?
Here in this stage of things, of your proceedings in your life, was there a plan to get to this point? Is the plan just changing all the time?
No, there wasn't really I didn't have a grand vision of I'm going to do these things this way. It's going to end up
Still going.
Still going.
Plan moving forward? How far out do you look?
Striving for perfection, knowing we'll never achieve it.
Okay.
Amy would be happy to tell you, and my son, that I'm way off. So he's got a long way to go. Yes.
But it's not a distant look into the future with steadfast.
No. I mean, I think things, like I said, I'm very pleased with where we are at Worthington. We have a great group of leadership coming up. I'd probably like to stay active for some ways between 3 to 5 years, and then maybe step back into a chairman-only role, giving them a little headroom right now.
What about your dad's legacy versus yours? Do you try to keep some things alive in honor of him while you're still?
Oh yeah,
you still make
absolutely.
Your own
Well,
name?
as I said, there's only one founder, and,
right.
And at the end of the day, one of my kind of goals is to make sure. It's kind of an odd thing to say because you have to do something to be successful and recognized for to start with, but it's never about me. You don't want to. The next person that I want it to be a little easier for, they don't have to follow something. I mean, how would you like to be Jeff Emhelt at GE? That's a tough road to follow, and I don't think Jack made it any easier. So you want the company and the legacy to go forward of its own right from here on out. Mm-hmm. It needs to be about Worthington.
Your dad was the Jack Welch of the
Yes,
Worthington Industries in Columbus. Well, I think you take that as a compliment. It's a big enterprise, 80 divisions in a dozen different countries and 10,000 people. That's a big. How do you keep your pulse on the pulse on something of that magnitude?
you do it through, and this is one of the things that when I say I used to want things to change, as we grew, we did not develop a structure with it. He was very opposed to any kind of a corporate structure and viewed that as the evil empire. So, but you do have to have some structure or you can't keep your pulse on things. You can't visit 80 facilities every year and intimately know what's going on. You could visit 5, but you couldn't visit 80. So it's just getting a good structure built up. Everybody understands everybody's role, and a good chain of communication. The key, of course, at the end of the day is always getting the right people, good people running your facilities. So it takes better training, it takes how you develop people so that you're confident when they go there, they're representing you. They're representing the values of the company, and it's being done right.
And those are certainly some things that haven't changed.
No.
Over the years.
That's always been the goal.
I mean, that's a source of pride. Where's the pride factor as far as doing this in Columbus? You know, being what has Columbus done to help you and this company here?
We've done different things with the city, but mainly I would say it's one of the reasons my father wanted to come here was he thought it was a great location with a good work ethic. So we have a great base of employees for those that we draw on here. It's a town that's easy to get around in. We don't have any trouble recruiting people here. I would tell you on the other with the Blue Jackets, every player in their family that comes here loves it. And it's the same experience we have at Worthington when we bring somebody new in. So they've made it a great place to do business, and we don't have many issues that requires governmental support, but occasionally we do, and usually people are pretty responsive and try to be helpful.
Do you think yourself that you've done some of the things that would allow you to reflect on a legacy left behind here, or would it encompass everything?
You're coming back to this.
Would it have to?
No. I don't know why anybody's here listening to what I want to say. You know? So no, I don't think of anything in those terms.
Yeah, but to carry on what this city will always look at with Worthington Industries business-wise, with the fan base of the Columbus Blue Jackets, I mean, there's a lot there that the city hangs a hat on.
And its founding base will be John H. McConnell.
That's a lot of pressure for you, isn't it?
No, it's none. Makes it easier.
You can't fall back on that, though.
We took my parents' house at Double Eagle and turned it into what we call Big Red's Lodge at Double Eagle. Turns out he was quite a hoarder when you went through things. It was amazing. And so we displayed all this stuff in the lodge. So it's kind of like a little museum and a little history. But one of the things, just to take this a different course, that shocked me after a while, because it took me a while to see these documents over and over again for it to dawn on me. But in 1961, we purchased our first location outside of Columbus. We had one here, and then we bought this plant in Louisville. And in 1972, he bought a house in Medic Estates. And both of those documents were on one page.
Huh.
It didn't take us long to get it really screwed up. You know, what, 50 years, and it's crazy.
Right. Now there's piles of it.
Yep.
Hoarders have an easier time collecting stuff these days. It's all out there for you. How about you, since you're taking it another direction right now, getting away, shutting it off? What do you do?
We live in the country, and I mow.
I got a party with this guy.
No, it's great. I mean, I can get on my tractor. It's 15-foot cutting width and about a 2-degree radius turning capabilities. I'm a god of the grass. And when I mow, I can turn around and I see the grass is cut. It's unlike most of what I do. I have to wait years to find out whether I was right or wrong. So I mow. Yeah.
Instant gratification. Travel, anything like that. How much does family play a part in what you do, knowing the values of your dad and how things came out?
Well, it's an incredibly important part. And John has spent some time at Worthington. He's now down at the Blue Jackets. and it's part of also how you turn it off. But everything you do for your family. So it's right at the center.
Are there others who had impact on you, business-wise, personal-wise, coming up through?
Oh, tremendously. Like I said, two of my father's best friends was one, Bob McCurry, who was the only 4-time captain at Michigan State, went on to be the head of sales for Chrysler, got fired, went to work at a Toyota distributorship on the East Coast, and ended up being what they called the #1 round at Toyota. He introduced the concept of Lexus to Toyota and had them bring it over. But an impressive, smart gentleman. The other was Mick McDaniel, who was his best friend since high school. He was like a second father to me. All of them were smart asses, so I was doomed to turn out the way I did. So,
what would you consider to be the greatest challenge that you've faced along the way?
I thought to myself before I came here, you'd ask things like the greatest or the most or something. I don't know. I don't know if there was ever.
What are you most proud of overcoming? If you're up against anything, or?
Most proud of overcoming. I don't have a good answer for that.
Maybe it's a bad question.
No, I'm sure it's a good question. It's like asking me what my favorite golf course is, because I think there's a lot of really great golf courses, and I enjoy most of them. There's all kinds of things. You got choices you have to make every day that lead you on a path. So, just the way life works.
All right, then, who do you like beating the most on the ice?
Who do I like beating the most? Well, Detroit has to be up there, and Pittsburgh, both of those teams. Yeah.
Okay. And we can't dwell on what the Blue Jackets season holds because of the unknown factor there, and I do understand that. That's just fine. The players know from 2004, it's recent memory, from an ownership standpoint, a board of governors standpoint, from the league standpoint, what's it going to take to get on the ice this year?
It's going to take an agreement.
Yeah.
Not to be.
Right. Those are your friends. Those are your friends from the family speaking through.
Yeah. I am not at the table. Obviously, we get updates all the time from the league, and we don't. They ask that you don't discuss it. So I think ultimately you have to look at what the other leagues settled for and look at kind of a blueprint and say they need to do what basketball and football already did on revenue sharing. But they'll hopefully work to a solution, and if there is a work stoppage of any sort, I hope it's a short one.
From a business world standpoint in Worthington Industries, are the next several months unstable as well? What concerns you in the near future business-wise?
From a market environment, I'd say things since 9, so 10, 11, 12, this is fiscal 13 for us, have been building steadily, very slowly but steadily. I'm not sure what the next 6 months are going to hold. I think there are signs that it's slowing, and there are signs that it's not. So we're going to have to keep watching all the metrics that we do watch and be ready to do whatever we need to do depending on what happens with the economy. But automotive has really led back manufacturing. They have been solid. They've done a great job, particularly the Detroit 3. And we'll see. Then the stock market, of course, is another item altogether. And sooner or later, Europe's got to clear up.
Europe, obviously, big sticking
Well,
point.
I think Europe and the election. We have to get past the election and get some stability in Europe or some certainty in what will happen in Europe. In some ways, while it will be painful, if they're going to go bankrupt, just go and be done with it and figure out the Eurozone and go. But it just always lingers and keeps going on and on. And it may be the best way to do it because it becomes kind of incremental at that point. And maybe that's a better way to fall, is incrementally fall. But we'll see.
Obviously nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. When you look back at the past, what have been the biggest changes that you've seen in your Worthington Industries dealings that nobody would have predicted before? But what have you seen throughout this ride here for you?
You mean just like, broadly?
Yeah,
Macro standpoint?
broad industry changes that you may not have seen coming and had to deal with.
I think if you go back to the 90s, the consolidation of the steel industry was badly needed, but usually a mill would die and somebody would buy it and bring it back. And that consolidation did close some capacity. It got it down to, really 3 large players in the U.S., with ArcelorMittal dominating the world. And so that was badly needed, and I think helpful to the industry as a whole. What has surprised me is that the volatility of steel pricing hasn't gotten more stable. It actually has been as volatile as now as it was back in the 80s during the kind of like the death throes. That's been a very good change. I think Detroit kind of getting its head on, they got past themselves as being success is a mighty enemy, and addressed some of their labor issues and addressed the way they thought about things. And so I think the changes in leadership there have been very good. Those are probably the 2 fundamental things that affect our business and what we do.
And affect them on a daily basis for production level. I just need to warn the folks in the audience who may be preparing their own questions here. You've got about 5 minutes or so to think up some dandies, and then we're going to present them from the microphone up here. But just a few more minutes with John P. McConnell here. And I got to tell you, I had a series of stories running overnight while you were sleeping series. And we went to Worthington Cylinders. And I was amazed at the production level. And you're talking about an outfit that puts out, everybody's gas grill at home on your patio probably has a Worthington cylinder made canister there. You got 3/4 of the North American market, I think. We cranked out, I worked with them that night, we cranked out 6,000 cylinders.
That's a good thing.
That's some huge production right there.
Yeah, it's our cylinder business has been a tremendous success over time. We've got, across our business, we have dedicated people. You see how hard they work. We're a profit-sharing company, so they share in what we get done. And we've expanded the basis. That's certainly one of our traditional product lines. We're pretty excited about where we put ourselves in position for our alternative fuels for vehicles. We have 3 facilities doing that in Poland, California, and in India. And if we can, get dedicated to putting in a natural gas infrastructure, we're in a great position to take advantage of that and help move that forward. It makes a ton of sense. It's cheap. It's clean. It would be money better spent than trying to force a battery that's not ready into the market. So that's kind of the leading edge of where we are with our cylinder company, and a lot of good things there.
I mean, is that derived from the push-pull of being green and things along those lines?
Well, it's watching what's happening in the marketplace, and there's clearly a push to escape carbon, escape gasoline as our main source of fuels, and they have found just 100 years worth of natural gas, and they're having trouble keeping the price above the cost of production because there's so much of it. So, like I said, it's abundant. We don't have to rely on any other country, and all we really need is a decent infrastructure to go forward.
You ever think back when you're mowing the lawn, what your dad would think of the job you've done? Is that important to you?
Yeah, I think he'd be pleased right now.
He'd say more than that.
He would have gotten over having the consultancy in.
I'd say the times that I've had with him in the past, I always thought were interesting. He would very enlightening on the topic, and then he would take a pause, and I always wondered whether he was done, or if he was just kind of reconfiguring where he was going. And I always thought there was that little awkward moment in there, and then he would just start up again and keep going.
He was probably opening the door to see if you had something you wanted to chime in
He always had something, I tell you what, that was pretty special, and I think that's what a lot of the folks here remember. And they'll see it through you, and they'll see it through the company, and I'm sure that's a source of pride as you continue here in and around Columbus. What is it like taking Worthington Industries on the road when you go out with that representation and Columbus as your home, and take it to different parts of this country and different parts of the world?
Representing the company?
Yeah.
Well, typically you're with somebody that there's a purpose for your visit, one way or the other, whether it's a group of investors or whether it's customers or suppliers or whatever. So it's pretty normal, natural event. When I go around privately, you know, I pretty much detached from that.
Because you're having fun.
Yeah, yeah, and it doesn't, reminds me, you know, my father was very proud of several things: Worthington's legacy, the Blue Jackets, Double Legal, and the ranch. Those were his three main things toward the last 10 years of his life or so. But, and he was a very humble person, but he also wanted people to know about these things. So we stopped in a gas station, and he goes in and buys something, and he looks at the guy. We're down in Florida. You like hockey? The guy goes, I don't know much about it. He goes, the Columbus Blue Jackets. What? It was pretty funny. So.
On a very much smaller level, I remember wearing the first year sweater and going up to Canada and having people look at you. Who's this club?
Yeah.
You know, where's that crest from?
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah. Which one of the minor leagues are you in again?
Exactly.
I think we're past that, but.
I would agree with that. We sure have enjoyed the visit here. So far, we have some folks who are going. I heard the church bells, so I know it's 1 o'clock without even checking. So we're going to invite some folks up who may have some questions. You need to ask you to keep them brief and keep them in the form of questions.
You, sir, are with a quasi-public entity, and you're not allowed to ask questions.
Right.
You can
You're
state
lucky,
your
you're
name.
lucky because the TV cameras are running, so I'm
It's all caught on camera. That is a good, very important point. Everything here is caught on camera. So please do state your name for us, and we do ask that it is in the form of a question.
Yeah, Alex Fisher, the Columbus Partnership, and you know, since we're talking about legacies, I guess the question I would ask you is about CEO leadership in your people, and you started off at some level in the personnel or HR area, and we've heard so many aspects of building culture, and you're turning your attention to building that culture at the Blue Jackets. Lori and I were with you and Amy and your management team one evening for dinner, and they were all at the bigger table. We were at the smaller table. That probably said something about Lori and I. But I was watching that evening, and I've watched with admiration how you built that team and how you've given that team rope, and you were giving them that rope that evening, and they were getting along well. And I'd like your perspective on the role of the CEO running one of the nation's largest companies in building that team, and maybe a little bit more about your specific team at Worthington.
That was a lot of questions in one. I just want to point that out. Again, I'm very fortunate to have a good foundation from a great leader and a good human being to follow my father. He had great principles. You know, don't take yourself seriously, be self-effacing, and try to do the right thing. Treat everybody the same. I had a great experience going to one of those conferences over 2 days where, you know, business leaders and political leaders all come in, and during this one segment, it was Margaret Thatcher who did her speech, and then they brought out this huge wingback chair, and she just sat on this giant stage, just her in this wingback chair. And you've seen people like this and run into them, where a guy gets up to ask a question, and he spends 4 to 5 minutes asking the question, trying to show how smart he was, right? And he goes through leadership styles of Reagan and Carter and Clinton, and what does she think? And he describes every style, and she doesn't move a muscle, just listens. And then she leans over and said, "What a bunch of rubbish!" And talked about, people get caught up with that, and don't forget, you know, Adolf Hitler was a great leader. If you want to talk about charismatic style and all that, he was an evil human being. So it's about doing the right thing, and that's what leaders should do. So all that kind of blends together.
Yeah, we're lucky you're in Columbus.
Thank you. And to the team, it's a great team. They've been with us for 5 or 6 years, the two primary leaders, Mark Russell and Andy Rose, and then we have new leadership in both our steel and cylinder companies that have been, actually both of those guys had left the company and came back, which I like. You get extreme loyalty from somebody who's had that experience. And I like having people who have other experiences in their life and not just grown up at Worthington only. Go ahead.
I'm Jane Scott. Thank you for being here. I had the opportunity of visiting with your dad one time to interview him about the story of how he started his business. Part of the role of the Legacy Series is to capture those stories. Would you share that story with us, please, about how your dad started the business?
Well, one of the parts he always left out was that in 1955, when he found the business, I had turned 2 years old, and therefore he never came home because of that. You know, terrible twos. Anyway, no, he was a salesman for Shenango Steel, based out of Youngstown. He had this territory in Columbus, and he started seeing an opportunity where customers wanted greater service and they wanted different services than the mills wanted to do. They just wanted to mess around with the big coil stock and not have to cut it and service small quantities and those kind of things. So he saw that niche and he borrowed $600 on his car and bought a first load of steel. He actually brokered it, and you know, for all of our sakes in the family, that didn't get rejected and went through, and he just slowly built the business as it went along. If you ever saw a graph of our growth, it really is a very gentle slope until 1980. And then it takes off. That was the acquisition of Buckeye International that really broadened us out, and where we really needed to start changing how we managed in some ways, and didn't. But
Phil Sorrentino, humor consultant, and I thought your dad liked me, so go figure that out. During uncertain times,
he spoke about you at many dinners.
During uncertain times, you weed out the weak players, and the strong ones widen the gap. What are you doing to get strong?
We build every day. Like I said, we really have, the group of people we have now, it's just such a pleasure, because what I tell people is they want to get it right as opposed to prove they're right. It's such a different environment when you have people like that. And we want to get better every day. We don't own the answer, and we're going to get better across the board. We've had a great run over the last 4 or 5 years, and right now we're really looking for the next push and how we're going to get to another level yet. Mark, who is our current president, always talks about, I told you I'd get this in, we don't want to just win. We got to win like Usain Bolt won. We got to just blow it out, and we got to keep finding those new levels all the time. So, and we're really focused right now on building, and Mr. Ames is here, who we brought in from Procter & Gamble. We are looking to become a manufacturer that is driven by innovation. And this will make us pretty unique if we succeed in getting that into our culture, getting our processes innovative all the time. So driving off of best practice, but then how do you get from best practice? Well, you got to be innovative. And after spending some time with some people at Procter & Gamble, it is clearly a discipline. And so you got to bring the talent in who knows that discipline. And you got to get used to, you know, your cohort's ponytails and tennis shoes. And
yeah. Real quick, a great book on that is How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. It's a great book on innovation.
Okay, I will get it.
Hi, Mr. McConnell. Thank you for being here today. Perhaps a good segue from the last question. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, the shale gas play and the potential resources here. It would seem both as an energy consumer and a supplier of products that could service the industry as well as market that, it could be a great potential. Are you guys planning or thinking about that, and in what ways for the future?
Well, really just the way I mentioned, which is we hope that becomes something that's used more regularly in transportation. You saw General Motors and I think Ford both offered the first production vehicles. Honda's had one for a while where you can get that as a feature. Of course, all vehicles can be converted pretty easily. It's just getting the tank in a conversion that generally, unfortunately, takes up your trunk space. So when it gets built into a car, it'll become much, much easier. But that would be the main thing that we're looking at. We're looking at different products that we're looking to get into that do supply storage to those areas. So it would be an expansion of our cylinder business. if we're able to do that. Be more direct.
Hello, Mr. McConnell. My
Mr.
name is Charlie
Rodenfels.
Rodenfels.
Yes.
I'm a humor consultant also.
Yes, you are.
We got a run on him today.
I need new friends.
I really wanted to kind of pick up on, many of us have known your dad, and a great guy in the community and certainly an influence on you. The saying always goes, behind every good man there's a good woman. Could you help me and the rest of us understand what your mother's influence in your career and your life and who you are today is?
Well, like I said, she really was the one that raised me because Dad was working a lot. That was more osmosis learning. She's the one who beat me up all the time. And we used to have fist fights in the kitchen. It was fun. Open-handed. And if I ever actually connected, I was in big trouble. So, but yeah, she taught me a lot about life and was a major influence in my life.
Any other things along the way that you can pinpoint business-wise that stick out to you, lessons learned that you carry with you to this day?
No, I get that. It's like our philosophy. It's more about their life principles as much as business principles. And I've seen so many people when they get a little authority, they walk through a business door and suddenly become somebody different. And that's just wrong. All businesses are really just a group of people. And so you need to behave just like you do in your neighborhood and in your family. It's just how do you deal with people? There's no different. And authority didn't make you smarter, didn't make you anything. Your job is to set up an environment where everybody can feel like they can get their best potential accomplished. One of the things about my mother, that she's the one who also held Dad in check very effectively. He got inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame and got an award that they give to, it's the Gold Pants Award or something, I can't remember. He was all excited. He came home and told her about it. She goes, why the hell would they pick you? Which was a pretty constant kind of theme around the house. So.
Squashed all that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Well, may the grass always be green under your mower.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time very much.
This series is all about legacies, and we're so lucky to have you continue the legacy and be here in Columbus and support the community like you do. Thank you, John.
Thanks.
It's terrific. Remember to make your reservation for the party next week on the 29th. Want to continue the conversation out in the lobby if you'd like to. Before you go, I want to thank the sponsors, Bricker & Eckler, Huntington, Fireproof Record Center, Columbus Region, the Conway Center for Family Business, and the Columbus Landmarks Foundation. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jeff. Have a good afternoon.